Today in Hyderabad Dialogues, we have national award-winning actor-filmmaker Rahul Ravindran, whose latest film, The Girlfriend, has emerged as a big box office hit, has got great reviews, but more importantly, it has initiated a lot of conversations about topics that should be discussed more in our society and our cinema. So today we'll be talking to Rahul Ravindran. Uh, Hello, sir. Thank you for taking the time for Hyderabad Dialogues, sir.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
It's almost been 10 days now, release of in the cinema. What's your state of mind currently, like after seeing the reception to the film, and how has it been for last 10 days?
It's been incredible because it's been a while. It's been 6 years since my last release, and that one didn't go too well. So it's nice to get after my first film to feel that love and appreciation and affection again. It feels lovely, and I caught you at one of the theaters when I'd come, and it's just so nice to get so many people come up to you, and so it's been amazing. But it's also been slightly strange in the sense that I'm yet to process some of the feedback, because on one hand there's this amazing love and affection that's coming, and on the other hand, Rashmika and I both keep getting these DMs, these really heartfelt, very personal messages about what the film's done for them, and how they've faced far greater ordeals in life. And some of those stories were narrated to us very vividly, and these are both women and sometimes men opening up about their experiences in a very, very toxic relationship. And some of it has been heartbreaking. And you realize the responsibility you have as a filmmaker when you're making something that relates with people so hard. You realize the responsibility you have. So some of it's been very heavy to digest. Yeah. So that's sitting on one corner of my head, and on the other side, these people also come and tell us that despite everything that they've been through, the film's been healing for them. That the film's given them strength and courage, and that's beautiful. So there's both these extremes that we're currently processing and trying to deal with. But yeah, it's been amazing. It's been very overwhelming.
ఈ ఫిల్మ్ అది కాన్సెప్ట్ గురించి చెప్పగలరా, that what you felt was so essential that I have to talk about this theme of relationship and like struggles some people face, especially women, like in generally in contemporary society. Eda trigger point meeku unnadi that you thought it was necessary to talk about this?
Actually, now when I look back, what triggered the thought for this film, ఇది ఎందుకు తీయాలనుకునే పాయింట్ ఏదైతే ఉందో, it's become so much more now. How it's impacted people that have been watching this film is so much more than that starting trigger point for me. The starting trigger point for me was one, there was two separate incidents, but one, there was this incident when I was in college, when I was a student, where I had this friend, and he's great guy, friend's friend, brother's brother, very helpful, very sweet guy. But he had a relationship in college, and when they were still in college, his girlfriend broke up with him, and he went on this massive Devdas mode, and he spent the next few nights crying and ultimately smashing his room, and there was extreme anger and extreme vulnerability, and he was just drinking through the night and things like that. And about 3-4 days later, he came to my room at 2:30 in the night one day, and he said, just come with me. And he had 4 of his other friends, and he took us at 2:30 in the night to the students' gents' bathroom, the gents' toilet. And he took out a permanent marker, and he wrote the girl's number on the wall. And on top of that, he wrote for sex contact. And he turned and looked at me, and he had this red, bloodshot eyes, angry, hurt, raging. And we all knew right there that there was no point trying to rationalize with him, that there was no point trying to make sense with him. And that stayed in my head. And we also knew at that point that if we said something and antagonized him, that there would be nobody left to control him. And, great guy, really great guy, but just in this phase in his life, in this mode where he was an emotional wreck and making some really bad choices. And I know, having been his friend, I know that, as disturbing and problematic as that was, I know that that's not all of him. I know that that doesn't define him. And yet it is something that had far-reaching consequences. So that stayed in my head. And then many years later, about maybe seven years later or so, I was just taking a step back and observing this movement in South Indian cinema, and indeed in Hindi cinema as well, where I was noticing that Devdasas were now going beyond Devdasas and becoming soup boys. I was observing it very neutrally, without judgment, because I think for a writer and a filmmaker, it's very important to first understand behavior rather than judge. Your immediate response to something can't be judgment. It has to first come from, why does someone do something that they do? The right or wrong of it, and processing that comes a little later. And I was observing this movement in our cinema which was glorifying the pain of the soup boy and eliciting claps and whistles. And the difference between a soup boy and a Devdas for me is that a Devdas drinks himself to death, destroys his own life, but a soup boy says, I will destroy my own life, I will drink myself to death, but I will also make you suffer because you brought the suffering upon me. And that then started getting spun as righteous revenge. And it started getting spun as something justified. And that used to make me very uncomfortable at that point. This was about 11, 12 years back. And which is when I said, I want to make a film that turns the camera the other way and hopefully makes people uncomfortable rather than, get them whistling and clapping. And for me, I wanted to make Vikram's in the theater uncomfortable because I as weird as it may sound, I've said this in other interviews as well, I wrote Vikram with empathy. I understand that if he was raised in a certain environment where he grew up watching his father treat his mother a certain way, and he's at an age where he's neither an adult nor a child, he's in that in-between age, he's not going to know any better. And the idea was to make a film. So ironically, Vikram came first in my head when I was trying to put these two together and develop a story. Vikram came first, and I said, I want to make a film that hopefully makes 5 Vikrams in the theater go back home and think and reflect. Whether they change or not is not in my hands, but hopefully they can go home and reflect. And that's how it started. But today it's become so much more than that. There's so many women and men who come to me and say that it was a healing experience for them. From there came the biggest issue with the Vikram at that, neither here nor there age is it's impossible for them to understand why the girl is not having the same experience in that relationship. He's happy. He's having all his needs fulfilled. And he feels, I don't hit my girlfriend. I don't abuse her. And I've never cheated on her. So I'm the world's greatest boyfriend. What possible reason could she have to not be happy with me? And the idea was to show Vikram a gentle mirror that hopefully prods him to go home and think. So it started there, but it's become so much more than that. And it just shows that it's so much more than I anticipated. I think Rashmika anticipated it because she kept saying, I know what reading the script did to me. So I don't understand how you got all these things as a man. But when this film comes out, I don't think you get a full sense of what this is going to do to women who watch this film. I get it. And she used to keep saying it, and I realize what she meant now because it's become so much more than just that. It's become so much more than making Vikrams go back home and think. So yeah, it's beautiful. It's lovely. I mean, what more can you ask for when you tell a story and that moves people and that gives them courage and it gives them strength. It heals them, like they say. And I'll put all that down to Rashmika's performance in the film, which is, I think, incredible. So yeah.
Earlier you said there used to be Devdas, which is a fact. They used to destroy themselves. Nowadays, there is this revenge mode.
Right.
Now, what is the psychology? And you must have studied not just your friend you referred to, but also others in the society nowadays. So we see also in newspapers. Almost every other day there is this kind of a story coming. అంటే ఏంది మారింది, వాట్ హ్యాపెండ్, ఎందుకు ఇట్లా చేస్తున్నారు అనేది, వాట్ ఈస్ ద సైకాలజీ? కెన్ యూ, ఐ మీన్ యూ మస్ట్ హ్యావ్ గాన్ త్రూ ఇట్ ఇన్ డెప్త్. వాట్ ఈస్ యువర్ ఒపీనియన్?
మారిందని చెప్పానండి. I think it was always there. It's just that filmmakers till a certain era chose not to push those stories beyond the point. I think there was a collective sense amongst storytellers at that point, be it literature or cinema, that let me not glorify this revenge that feels like righteous revenge in that boy's head. So maybe they weren't going beyond a certain point, maybe. But as far as society is concerned, I'm sure it always existed. And the easiest weapon you have when you've been dumped is to slut shame a girl. Right? నాతో పడుకున్నావు, ఇప్పుడు ఇంకొకరితో వెళ్ళి పెళ్లి చేసుకొని పడుకుంటావా is your instant response. And it comes from an inability to digest the fact that she's no more yours.
So this is not about love.
It isn't at that point, is it? I mean, I'd like to think there is this beautiful dialogue that his friend tells him. He says, ఇంకా చాలా ఆపేద్దాం అంటాడు. ఆ అమ్మాయిని ఇంతకన్నా బాధ పెట్టడం ఎందుకు అంటే అంటాడు వీడు. అంటే నువ్వు అమ్మాయిని లవ్ చేస్తున్నావు కదరా, తను బాధపడితే నువ్వు కూడా బాధపడతావు అంటాడు. So to me, if you really did love somebody, if you really did care about them, how would you be okay with hurting them? How would you be okay with humiliating them? So at that point, I'm trying to understand, again, without judgment, I'm trying to understand what it really was for you. And the one takeaway that I had was that నీకు కావాల్సింది ఆ అమ్మాయి కాదు, అలాంటి అమ్మాయి. You are in love with the notion of such a woman, not her per se, which is why her feelings and how much she will be humiliated and hurt doesn't hit you, doesn't strike you. Because at that point, typical narcissistic behavior where your feelings matter to you more than her feelings. The world centers around your feelings and you're raised a certain way. You're used to people in your life fulfilling your needs and making you the center of their universe. And that is textbook narcissistic behavior. And I think it comes from that. And I think if you sit down and have a conversation with them, or like in my case, make a movie about it, I'd like to think a lot of them, many of them can be prodded out of it. And I hope we've done that. I hope, and I know we've done that because of all the feedback that I get. ఎంతో మంది అబ్బాయిలు నాకు ఫోన్ చేసి, భయ్యా నేను ఒక విక్రమ్ని అని నాకు అర్థమైంది, I promise you I'll be a better boyfriend, I promise you I'll be a better husband. And that to me is so many boomers' lives are going to be better because these Vikrams watched this film. And I couldn't have asked for a better award or a reward. So, Marinda ante నాకు తెలీదు. Sure, I think we should. It might sound problematic, but I think we should tell all kinds of stories. I think we should have stories from all perspectives. And we should have discussion and debate. I chose to tell the story from this point of view. So, should people not be making films about jilted lovers taking righteous revenge? Tricky question. Maybe they should. Maybe somebody is going through that phase in their life where they want to express themselves. Maybe they should, but hopefully there are also filmmakers making films from the counterpoint. And that was my attempt. So,
మీరు ఇప్పుడు అన్నాడు దట్ విక్రమ్ ని కూడా మీరు ఎంపతితో రాశారని, లైక్ ఈవెన్ ఆడియన్స్ రియాక్షన్ చూసి మీరు ఏంటి అనిపిస్తుంది, దట్ దాన్ని విలన్ గానే చూస్తున్నారా, ఆర్ దే ఆర్ ఆల్సో సీయింగ్ హిస్ సైడ్, లైక్ అండర్స్టాండింగ్ హిస్ పర్స్పెక్టివ్? బికాస్ what is your take on whatever little observation of audience reaction you've had about Vikram's character?
There's a difference. He is the villain of the story. There's no doubt about it. Because the story is Booma's story. And in her story, he is the villain of the story. There's no doubt about it. And I, as a writer, filmmaker, chose to tell the story from her point of view. But that doesn't mean you can't write your villain with empathy. What is my intention? My intention wasn't to humiliate Vikram and antagonize the Vikrams and sitting and watching in the theater and say, you are a bad person. My intention as a filmmaker and a writer was to, Vikram, I understand. I get you. I understand that at this age, you're not going to know any better. So hopefully this film will make you go back home and think. That is my intention. My intention isn't to say, you bloody Vikram, you're a villain. Right? So that is what I mean by empathy. But that does not mean that he's not the villain of the story. He is. It's like, if you watched Robo 2, so many people walked out of the theater empathizing with Akshay Kumar's character. Definitely. But that doesn't mean he's not the villain of the story. For me, he was my hero, right? I walked out of that film saying, the world needs a hero like him. So it's clearly written with empathy, that villain. And yet he is the villain of the story. Where do you draw the line? The problem with him is that his intentions might be right, but here it's not even about his intentions are right. They're not. Yeah. They're not. Here it's slightly different in that sense. But that's what I meant by I wrote him with empathy. That doesn't mean he's not the villain of the story. So, yeah.
Sir, మీ కొంచెం early years గురించి మాట్లాడగలరా? అంటే like your journey before you even thought about entering cinema, about your growing up years, like what kind of influences were there on your life as a creator, as somebody who is watching cinema or reading books, about your growing up years basically?
If you want me to go back to a time before I wanted to be a filmmaker, that's like 6th standard. I think it was around 7th or 8th standard that when I was in school that I wanted to be a filmmaker. Oh. And since then, that's never changed. Okay. Ever. Every single decision I made in my life was working towards that goal. Including, I did my post-graduation in a field that was completely unrelated. But even that decision was made because I wanted to enter cinema, which might sound weird. I did an MBA in marketing, but at that point for me, it was, I'm not from a family that's in the industry. I have zero contacts in cinema. So I don't know if I'll even get my first Friday. So before I go all in and try cinema, I need to have because I come from a very normal middle class family. So I knew my father spent more than he could beyond his capacity to get me educated. So for me, I said to myself that in case I don't even get that first Friday in cinema, I need to have a cushion. I need to have an insurance to fall back on. I can't, waste my life. So I said, when I finished my BCom, I said, this is not the time for you to go try cinema. That time will come, but first you need to create a cushion for yourself to fall back on. Luckily, I've not had to fall back on that cushion. I've managed to see many, many Fridays over 15 years as both an actor and as a director now. So yeah, I can't even remember a time when I didn't want to be a filmmaker. So,
your parents of this?
For the longest time, I never told them. My friends, I would keep telling my friends, but everybody says in school that I want to be a filmmaker or I want to be an actor. So when I sat down and had a very serious conversation with my parents, until then I never did, was I had a job in Bombay and I'd finished my MBA by then. I had also done another postgraduate diploma. And then I was working in Bombay, and my aim was, again, that get a year and a half of work experience so that you can at least start at that level if cinema doesn't work out for you. So I went from senior executive to assistant manager, and once I became an assistant manager, I said, okay, I'm good to quit now. I was about to be promoted to brand manager. Then I said, no, I don't want that promotion, because if I get that promotion and if I get a salary hike, life might get too comfortable for me to take that risk. So at that point in Bombay, my target was that I should save 1.5 lakh. Because in my head, if I have 1.5 lakh, I can come back to Chennai, live with my parents, but not because my dad didn't let me take an education loan. He worked really hard to get me educated. So I said, I don't want to go back to my dad for money. It's the least I can do. So if I go back home and live with my parents, where most of your expenses are taken care of, you're not paying rent and all that, then 1.5 lakhs will help me survive 1 or 2 years. The day that 1.5 lakhs is over, I'll stop trying cinema, come back to Bombay and get a job. Luckily, before that money ran out, I got my first film. As an actor, not as an assistant director. I was trying to be an assistant director. But so at that point, I had a chat with my parents, and my mom was very excited because my mom was always into fine arts, and she used to do theater in college and school and all that. So she was super excited. And she was very, very encouraging. My dad was worried, but also encouraging. He said he was worried because he said, I have no idea about this industry. I cannot help you. I cannot support you. You're on your own. So as a parent, to watch my child go into an industry that everybody tells me is very, very risky, and there's no assurance of a settled career, where it's very up and down, is very, very worrying. And especially because it's an industry I know nothing about. So if you're okay with that, go. And I told him only one thing. I said, Appa, I will be happier being a failure in cinema than a success in any other industry. So let me try this. He said, okay. If you're clear about that, go. So that was the conversation. But yeah, there was never too much resistance from them. My mom was super excited. And then she started seeing me struggle, because my first film took 3 years to release. And I think that is when she wasn't worried, but she would feel bad for me that, hey, he's got these dreams, he's got these ambitions. Please God, help him achieve it and things like that. So, yeah.
So, sir, when you're writing and filmmaking, so what is the hardest emotion that, to write and to execute?
The hardest emotion?
Yeah.
Comedy. I think most people who have written and directed a comedy will tell you that. I think it's the most difficult. Because everything else is coming from a very organic, honest space where if you feel the emotion when you're writing and making it, then it's likely that people are going to feel it, right? So you don't lose judgment when you've seen the film over and over and over again when you're making it and in post. But when it comes to comedy, somewhere the whole point of comedy is to make people laugh. Okay. So it is very reaction oriented that you're writing and making it, right? So it's not that I'm going to make something I believe in. That I feel is slightly easier. You could go wrong with it, but that is easier to judge for yourself. But when you're writing comedy, it depends on getting a certain reaction, which is laughter. And in post, when you start watching a comedy scene again and again and again, how many times are you going to laugh, right? You laugh the first time, you laugh the second time. Beyond a point, you stop laughing. And by the time you watch the film 1,500 times before its release, everything starts feeling unnecessary. You start feeling, maybe people aren't going to laugh. Maybe I should take it out. Maybe I should trim it. But then that's where you need to have a lot of conviction and determination and say, no, I'm going to stick to my judgment. And at that point, you don't have judgment.
So once you've written it, is there somebody you narrate it to so that you know if it is funny enough for you to put it in the movie?
Specifically comedy, I've never taken feedback. I've never taken feedback for, hey, can you read this and tell me if it's funny? But I have a habit of sending my scripts to people. Like I have a habit of, there are 1 or 2 people that I send a script to after I've written 10 pages of it. To say, hey, here's the first 10 pages. Where do you think this is going? What do you think is going to happen? Is the first 10 pages engaging for you? To get an understanding of, am I setting this up right? Am I going to surprise people or is it predictable? If it is predictable, then how do I navigate that and things like that? And then once I finish my first draft, I have a habit of sending it to about 7, 8, 9 people to understand if everything I intend to convey is getting conveyed and things like that. And then once I finish my final draft, I again send it to a few people for feedback. I don't necessarily make all the changes that everybody throws at me, but that feedback helps me understand a few things, which is that how many people is this going to work for? You know, how niche or how accessible is this going to be? And then depending on that, what kind of budgeting should I have for the film? I don't make too many drastic decisions in terms of just because somebody is telling me this is not working, I don't change it. If I believe in it, I stick to my guns. But I understand, okay, I believe in it, I stick to my guns, but it's not working for this percentage of this small audience that I sent it to. So it might be niche, so let me scale down the budgeting. Those are the things that are going on in my mind at that point. So, yeah.
And when you're writing a script, how do you choose the theme that you want to work on? There might be hundreds of thoughts that, run by you. So what makes you pick that one theme that you feel like, yes, this will work with the audience better?
I can only tell you from personal experience. I'm sure other people have other processes. But for me, the theme doesn't come first. For me, either I see something or I experience something myself, or I read about something and I'm like, hey, there's something there that I want to tell. There's something there that's interesting for me that I'd like to explore. And then I ask myself, why do you find it interesting? What about it? And it's at that point that the themes start falling in place. So yeah, like for example, I said, I want to make a film that makes Vikrams go home and think about what they're doing. And from there, I said, what is Vikram's biggest problem? Is that he can't understand why Bhuma is not happy in that relationship. So then how should Bhuma be? And then from that point, the themes start falling in place. And at that point, like 11 years, 12 years back, when I thought of this story, the word or the phrase toxic relationships didn't exist. So I didn't have a name for it, but I was thinking of relationships where I've seen people be unhappy because they're being controlled and their own identity is getting erased. And then that starts becoming a thematic explanation. So it's at that point that the themes start falling in place. So it's like, okay, if I want to thematically explore what it is to have your identity slowly erased in a relationship, then what should Bhuma be like? And then at that point, Bhuma starts becoming an introvert because she was raised a certain way. And then another theme falls in place. So that's kind of how it works for me. So, yeah.
ఇప్పుడు అంటే ఫ్యూ పీపుల్ కి డ్రాఫ్ట్ సెండ్ చేస్తా ఉన్నారు
అవును.
సెండింగ్ బట్ అంటే వాళ్ళందరూ ఎంకరేజ్ చేస్తారా దే డిస్కరేజ్ ఆల్సో లైక్ వెన్ ఇట్ కమ్స్ టు గర్ల్ ఫ్రెండ్
You get all kinds of responses, sir, usually. ఎందుకంటే నేను ఎప్పుడు పంపించేది నాకు ఆనెస్ట్ గా ఒపీనియన్ ఇచ్చే వాళ్ళకే పంపుతా. ఊరికే నేను పంపించి జస్ట్ బి నైస్ టు మీ ఇఫ్ సంబడి ఇస్ జస్ట్ గోయింగ్ టు కమ్ అండ్ ఓ ఇట్స్ లవ్లీ అంటే నేను వాళ్ళకి ఇఫ్ ఐ సెన్స్ దట్ ఫ్రమ్ దెన్ ఐ డోంట్ సెండ్ బికాజ్ ఇట్స్ నాట్ గోయింగ్ టు హెల్ప్ మీ. సో నేను పంపించేది నాకు బ్రూటలీ ఆనెస్ట్ గా ఫీడ్బ్యాక్ ఇచ్చే వాళ్ళకే పంపుతా. అండ్ స్పెసిఫిక్లీ మీరు అడిగిన గర్ల్ ఫ్రెండ్ గురించి అడిగారు కదా, లాట్ ఆఫ్ మై వెరీ డియర్ ఫ్రెండ్స్ అండ్ మై వెల్ విషర్స్ హూ డీప్లీ కేర్ అబౌట్ మీ అండ్ మై కెరియర్ asked me not to make the film. They said, don't. What are you doing? I said, why? There were some not so inner circle people who told me, అమ్మాయిలు థియేటర్ కి రారు, ఈ సినిమా తీయొద్దు, మీకు ఆడియన్స్ ఉండదు, అదే అన్నాడు. And I'm so glad that's been proved wrong. But some of my closer friends were worried that, అరే ప్రీవియస్ సినిమా ఫ్లాప్ అయింది కదా, వై డోంట్ యూ గో మేక్ అ సేఫర్ ఫిల్మ్. ఆ ఫ్లాప్ అయిన సినిమాలో కూడా అందరూ ఎంజాయ్ చేసింది కామెడీ. ఓకే, నీ క్లియర్లీ యూ హ్యావ్ అ న్యాక్ ఫర్ కామెడీ. ఫస్ట్ సినిమా అయినా సరే, సెకండ్ సినిమా అయినా సరే కామెడీ ఎంజాయ్ చేశారు. మంచి సేఫ్ కామెడీ సినిమా ఒకటి రాసుకో, ఒక ఎంటర్టైనింగ్ సినిమా ఒకటి రాసుకో. అది వెళ్ళి తీస్తే ఖచ్చితంగా హిట్ అయ్యే ఛాన్సెస్ ఎక్కువ ఉంటాయి. ఒక హిట్ ఇచ్చిన తర్వాత ఇలాంటి స్క్రిప్ట్లు తీయి. బికాస్ ఇట్స్ అ వెరీ హార్డ్, అన్కంఫర్టబుల్ స్క్రిప్ట్ టు రీడ్, రైట్? సో దే సెడ్ ఇంత సీరియస్ సినిమా, ఇంత ఇంటెన్స్ సినిమా ఇప్పుడు ఎందుకు వద్దు అన్న. దే కేమ్ ఫ్రమ్ అ గుడ్ ప్లేస్, ఐ అండర్స్టాండ్. సో నేను తీసుకుంటా, నేను వింటా, కొన్ని రోజులు వరి అవుతా, బాధపడతా, అరే కరెక్టేనా నేను చెప్పేది, నిజంగానే జరిగితే నా పరిస్థితి ఏంటి, నా ఫ్యామిలీ పరిస్థితి ఏంటి, నా ఫ్యూచర్ పరిస్థితి ఏంటి. But then somewhere deep down, when you really want to tell a story, that starts trumping everything else. So I'm like, పర్లేదు, ఇది రిస్క్ అయినా పర్లేదు, ఈ సినిమా తీద్దాం, నాకు ఎందుకంటే ఈ కథ చెప్పాలి అని ఒక ఆ అర్జ్ ఉన్నప్పుడు అని చెప్పాను.
కానీ చాలా మంది ఒపీనియన్ ఏంటంటే దర్ లాట్ ఆఫ్, అంటే చిన్మయి ఇంపాక్ట్ మీ మీద చాలా ఉంది అంటారు. ఇస్ ఇట్ ట్రూ?
చిన్న ఇంపాక్ట్ నా మీద ఖచ్చితంగా ఉంటుంది. బికాస్ we share
ఆ స్టోరీ.
Not with this. Actually, the truth is, I started developing the story, and in fact, I had the story developed even before I met Chinmay. So this, when it comes to this particular story, she had nothing to do with it. Because like I said, Chinmay ni kalise munde already oka story form ayi undindi na head lo. So subconsciously were there little changes that came through when I finally wrote it, because I had met her, maybe, I don't know. But it was pretty much the same story in my head 11 years, 12 years back. Ante, it was around just before I had met Chinmay. But na college lo jarigina incident, it was much before I met Chinmay. So,
but you discuss stories with her? Whatever you...
I don't discuss stories with her. I usually get her to read my scripts. That I do. After I've written it. Ee cinema kuda ade chesanu. 20 pages అయిపోయాక నా వల్ల కాదు, మరీ ఇంటెన్స్ ఉంది, నా వల్ల కాదు, నేను చదవలేనంది. అసలు అరే అమ్మ, నువ్వు దయచేసి చదువు. బికాస్ నేను అమ్మాయి పాయింట్ ఆఫ్ వ్యూ లో స్టోరీ చెప్తున్నాను. ఏమైనా పెద్ద తప్పులు చేస్తున్నానా, ఐ డోంట్ వాంట్ విమెన్ టు సే హీ డింట్ గెట్ అస్ అట్ ఆల్ అనే క్వశ్చన్ చిన్మయ్యకే కాదు, ఐ సెంట్ ఇట్ టు అట్లీస్ట్ సమ్ 12-13 ఫీమేల్ ఫ్రెండ్స్ దట్ ఐ హ్యావ్. సో వాళ్ళందరికి పంపించాను. సో అలా చిన్మయ్య కూడా పంపించాను. బట్ దెన్ ఐ లిటరలీ ఫోర్స్డ్ హర్ టు ఫినిష్ రీడింగ్ ద స్క్రిప్ట్. And she finished reading the script and she felt so claustrophobic and triggered, and she said, ఈ సినిమా నేను లైఫ్ లో చూడలేదు, ఇప్పుడు దాకా చూడలేదు ఇంకా సినిమాని. సో యా.
కానీ క్రిటిసిజం వచ్చింది, అది ఎట్లా తీసుకున్నారు? హౌ డిడ్ యు టేక్ ఇట్, దట్ క్రిటిసిజం?
I took some time, sir. Obviously, నేను because Manmadhuru 2 అనేది it went beyond criticism. I got a lot of hate. So initially, I also had a very emotional reaction to that hate. I found it very difficult to have a logical reaction. See, when the criticism thrown at you is constructive and logical, it is easy for you to process it logically. But when there is hate being thrown at you, it is difficult for you also to process it logically. You will process it emotionally. So కొన్ని రోజులు అయ్యాక మెల్లగా I sat down, I took a deep breath, I calmed down, and then I started processing it. I tried to understand where I went wrong, what I did wrong, and things like that. So అదైతే చేశాను. Obviously, I learned a lot from it. But I have no regrets because we really enjoyed the process of making that film. So I'm glad I had that experience. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Okay.
Hey, thank you. This is enough. Juices.
No, please do have it.
That's okay.
You want to have tea?
No, I'm good.
ఇంకో వన్ క్వశ్చన్. ఇప్పుడు గర్ల్ ఫ్రెండ్ సినిమా తీశారు,
Mike.
ఇప్పుడు ఇట్లాంటి ప్రాబ్లం ఉన్నప్పుడు ఇట్ సీమ్స్ నాట్ వైడ్ స్ప్రెడ్ బట్ డెఫినెట్లీ అ ప్రాబ్లమ్ ఆఫ్ కన్సర్న్.
Okay.
సొసైటీ షుడ్ లుక్ ఎట్ ఇట్.
Okay.
సో మీ ఉద్దేశంలో సొసైటీ ఏం చేస్తుంది, పేరెంట్స్ రోల్ ఎట్లా ఉంటుంది, వాట్ ఆర్ దే డూయింగ్, వేర్ ఆర్ దే గోయింగ్ రాంగ్, ఆర్ దే గోయింగ్ రాంగ్, దీన్ని ఎట్లా డీల్ చేయాలని?
Sir.
అంటే యువర్ పర్సనల్ ఒపీనియన్.
Yeah. I mean, I don't like making blanket statements because I always believe that the more personal you go, the more universal a story. So ఆ approach తోనే రాశాను. So parents ఏం తప్పులు చేస్తున్నారు feels like a very grand blanket statement to make.
తప్పని కాదు, అసలు హౌ దే షుడ్ లుక్ ఎట్ ఇట్, ఏం చేయాలి?
I can only tell you from my own experience. I am so grateful to my parents because they gave me a very normal child. It wasn't spectacular, nor was it tragic. They gave me a very normal childhood, and today I am a normal human being. Everything, like the more and more I understand, obviously, the older I get, the more maturity I have, the more I observe people. The one thing I realize is everything, all our psychological scars, everything that we need to heal from, everything goes back to childhood and the style of parenting that you were exposed to. So today as parents, I've become parents just 3 years back. So Chinnu and I, we keep, it's the one thing we keep discussing with each other, that all we need to give our children is a normal childhood. And one of the things my father would do for me, my mother would do for me, is that because I was the elder sibling, from a very young age, they treated me like an adult. They treated me with respect.
మీరు ఒకరేనా సార్?
I have a younger brother, sir, who's 5.5 years younger than me. I'm the first child. They always treated me with respect. నువ్వు ఇది చెయ్యాలి, ఇది చేయకూడదు ఎప్పుడు చెప్పేవారు కాదు. నువ్వు ఇది చేస్తే ఇలా జరగవచ్చు, ఇది చేస్తే ఇలా జరగవచ్చు, నువ్వు ఏం చేస్తావు నన్ను అడిగేవారు. నేను తప్పు డెసిషన్ తీసుకున్నా, అది మరీ ఒక లైన్ దాటిపోతుంది, మరీ డేంజరస్ అనుకోండి, అప్పుడు దే వుడ్ ఫోర్స్ మీ సేయింగ్ నో, కుదరదు, వి వాంట్ అలౌ యు టు డూ దిస్. బట్ దట్ వాస్ సో రేర్ ఇన్ మై చైల్డ్హుడ్. If my father and mother felt that I was making a 50-50 decision, it could go wrong, they would still let me make that decision. And then they would say, face the consequences of that decision. నువ్వు డెసిషన్ తీసుకున్నావు, దాని కాన్సిక్వెన్సెస్ ఇవి, నువ్వు ఫేస్ చేయి. చిన్నప్పటి నుంచి ఇలా ట్రైన్ చేసేవారు నన్ను. సో when I became an adult, I became a very self-confident adult who could express myself, who wasn't crippled. I could make my own decisions with clarity because I was made I was made to face the consequences of my own decision, because I was made responsible for my decisions at a young age. I learned to start thinking through my decisions, approach them logically, weigh the pros and cons, and then make a decision. Because రేపు ఏదైనా నేనే రెస్పాన్సిబుల్ అనే ఫీలింగ్ నాకు చాలా చిన్న ఏజ్ లోనే ఇచ్చేది. సో దిస్ ఇస్ వాట్ ఐ మీన్ బై నార్మల్ చైల్డ్హుడ్, రైట్? అండ్ I would never see my father hit my mother or, and things like that. So I grew up in a very normal environment where the wrong things were not normalized for me, unlike a Vikram. So for me, I think that is the most important thing. And I keep telling Chinnu that we let them be, right? We shouldn't force our personalities on them. We should let them develop their own personality. And I tell, Chinnu and I talk to each other that even if we are having an argument, even if we are having a rare bad day, we need to make sure that in front of the children, we discuss that problem like adults, calmly. And we are anyway not the type to scream at each other, shout at each other. Never. I don't think it's ever happened in 11 years of marriage. But, so, it's like even if we have a problem, and as a husband and a wife, we are navigating that problem, in front of our children, we should sit down, talk about it logically and solve that problem. That sets the right tone for them, because they're absorbing everything. And if I love my wife, I make it a point to express that in front of my children, because I want them to grow up knowing what it means to be loved and respected by your partner, so that they don't settle for less in their relationships tomorrow. So these are the things I do. These are the influences my parents had on me, and this is the influence I would like to have on my children. But who am I to make blanket statements about what are parents getting wrong? It was very case to case, sir. Very, very personal, very, very case to case. So parents ఈ రోజుల్లో ఇలాంటి తప్పులు చేస్తున్నారు అని చెప్పడానికి నేనెవడు. సో
కానీ గర్ల్ ఫ్రెండ్ లో ఒక డైలాగ్ ఉంది. ఆమె ఫాదర్ కి ఫోన్ చేస్తే ఫాదర్ అడుగుతాడు, ఏంటి నీకేమైనా హార్మోన్స్ ప్రాబ్లమా, నువ్వు ఇలా ఉంటే గనక నీకు 24 లోనే మ్యారేజ్ చేసి పంపించామని. అది జనాలు దే స్టార్టెడ్ డిబేట్, రియలీ ఫాదర్ టాక్స్ లైక్ దట్ with his daughter.
I'm glad that debate is happening, sir. I'm very glad. That is all you can hope for as a filmmaker, sir. I have never made a film to change people. I have only made a film to make people think and start conversations. The whole idea of this film was to start conversations. So ఎవరైతే ఇలా అవ్వదు ఏంటిది అదేదని చెప్తున్నారో, fantastic, because they can probably never imagine being like that to their daughters or sons. So amazing. But you go out and ask the number of women who have been character assassinated by their own parents. You will be shocked. So ఇది రియాలిటీ కాదు అంటే ఐఎమ్ వెరీ సారీ. ఐ విల్ వెరీ పొలైట్లీ అగ్రీ టు డిసగ్రీ, బికాస్ ఇట్ ఈస్ మెనీ పీపుల్స్ లివ్డ్ రియాలిటీ. దిస్ ఇస్ ద ట్రూత్. ఐ హావ్ హర్డ్ పేరెంట్స్ సే ఫార్ వర్స్ థింగ్ టు దర్ చిల్డ్రన్. యూ విల్ బి షాక్డ్. ఆయన చెప్పింది వెజ్ వర్షన్ నా దృష్టిలో. ఐ హావ్ హర్డ్ ఫార్ వర్స్ కాన్వర్సేషన్స్ బిట్వీన్ పేరెంట్స్ అండ్ చిల్డ్రన్. సో సార్, ప్రాబ్లమ్ ఇస్ Bhuma in this film is at a stage in her life where she, like Vikram, is neither a child nor an adult. She's in between. She's neither a teenager nor an adult. And that phase tends to be very difficult for parents to deal with, because you have decided everything for a child, you have had complete control over a child, and to suddenly completely give up that control and to respect the fact that they're an adult is very difficult for a parent. And whatever their age, whatever their maturity, when you're dealing with something for the first time, it tends to get the worst out of you. So sometimes at that age, when they're dealing with their children, it could be a boy, it could be a girl, sometimes without them realizing it, it gets the worst out of them. And I have seen far worse than what Rahul Ravindran tells Bhuma in that scene. So, yeah.
ఇప్పుడు
So, దానివల్ల ఒక డిబేట్ జరుగుతుంది, ఒక కాన్వర్సేషన్ స్టార్ట్ అయిందంటే వెరీ హ్యాపీ సార్, వెరీ హ్యాపీ. యూ ప్లీజ్ ఫీల్ ఫ్రీ టు డిసగ్రీ విత్ మీ. ఐఎమ్ నో ప్రాబ్లమ్, ఐఎమ్ వెరీ హ్యాపీ. బట్ as long as you go have a discussion or a debate, that's all I intend. So, that works.
ఓకే. ఇప్పుడు సోషల్ మీడియాలో ఫర్ సమ్ దీనికంటే చిన్మయి రెస్పాండ్ అవుతుంటారు కదా, సమ్ పీపుల్ విల్ ట్రోల్ చేస్తుంటారు. దానికంటే మీ రెస్పాన్స్, ఆమె రెస్పాన్స్ జనరల్గా ఎట్లా ఉంటుందంటే, స్ట్రెస్ ఏమైనా ఫీల్ అవుతారా? చాలా లాట్ ఆఫ్ ట్రోలింగ్ కదా ఉంటుంది సోషల్ మీడియాలో.
అది ఉంది. ఐ మీన్
అంటే లైట్ తీసుకుంటారు జనరలీ.
లైట్ తీసుకోవడం అయితే కుదరదు సార్. యూ జస్ట్ లెర్న్ టు డీల్ విత్ ఇట్ ఇన్ అ మెచ్యూర్ మేనర్ అండ్ మూవ్ పాస్ట్ ఇట్. I am a very secure man, sir, because of how my parents raised me. They taught me to respect myself and respect my decisions at a very young age. So I am very secure as an individual, sir. Very rarely you can come and tell me anything you want. I will go back home and think about it. ఏమైనా ప్రాబ్లం ఉందా నాలో, నేను మార్చుకోవాలని ఆలోచిస్తా తప్ప, అయ్యో ఎవరో నా గురించి ఇలా అనేసారు, ఎవరో నా గురించి ఇలా అనుకుంటున్నారు, those things never affect me because I am a very secure individual. నేనేంటో నాకు తెలుసు, నువ్వు నా గురించి ఏమనుకున్నా నాకేంటి, మిమ్మల్ని కాదు, సోషల్ మీడియా, నువ్వు నా గురించి ఏమనుకున్నా నాకేంటి. What is important is what my wife thinks of me, what my mother thinks of me, what my father thinks of me, what my brother thinks of me, what my friends think of me. That is important. Not what somebody else thinks of me. But అలాంటి ఒక స్ట్రేంజర్ వచ్చి చెప్పినా, అరే నాలో ఈ ప్రాబ్లం ఉందా అనేది అయితే ఇంటికి వెళ్ళి ఆలోచిస్తా. So it is a very logical reaction to these things. Where I initially found it very difficult to deal with it was when people talk about my wife. That used to get a very emotional reaction out of me, and I found it difficult to deal with. Because the people that you love and that you care for, when people attack them, that is difficult to digest. But I've gotten used to it now. And I know that I have a wife who's capable of dealing with it. She's perfectly capable of fighting her own battles. She's a very strong girl. And I'm very proud of her. So I've slowly gotten used to that. The one thing now I was like, there's some one tweet about my children. I suddenly for about half an hour, 45 minutes, I became a very different human being. One that I haven't seen in many years within me. So again, hopefully I'll never see a tweet like that again. But hopefully that is something I don't have to get used to. But other than that, I'm very secure as an individual. So, okay. And అలా అని చెప్పి do we not feel bad? Of course we feel bad.
ఒకసారి మనకెందుకు అని అనడం గానీ, అంటే చాలా ఇష్యూస్ రైజ్ చేస్తుంటారు కదా సోషల్ మీడియాలో. సినిమా కూడా మనకెందుకు అవన్నీ
కొన్నిసార్లు చెప్తా, ఎందుకులే నీకు అవసరమా ఇప్పుడు చూసుకోని చెప్తా. బట్ ఐ నెవర్ ఫోర్స్ her. Because if she feels strongly about something, let her speak it out. So she should be able to express herself. She should be her own person. I made a film about it. I don't want her to be married to a man that is not allowing. Who am I to even allow it? But I don't want her to be in a marriage because she is the person I love the most in this world. And I wouldn't want her to not be able to express herself, to not be herself. So, sure, as a well-wisher, I suggest sometimes, but I never force. Okay, చేయాల్సింది నువ్వు చేసుకో. చెప్తా, అడుగుతా, కొన్నిసార్లు ఎన్నోసార్లు తను కంట్రోల్ చేసుకుంటుంది కూడా పాపం. అదే కదా సార్, ఇప్పుడు ఒక 200 ట్వీట్లు వస్తే రిప్లై చేయని 190 ట్వీట్స్ మీకు కనపడదు, రిప్లై చేసిన 10 ట్వీట్లే కనపడతాయి. So, but I know the fact that she doesn't reply to 190 of them. So, yeah, but she's a strong girl. She knows how to handle herself.
So your films and performances, it feels very, grounded and introspective. So what's this one storytelling rule that, you never break it irrespective of what the genre is?
That's an interesting question. I mean, I'll have to sit down and think about it for a while. I don't think there is any rule as such. I might go tomorrow make a film that's not very grounded and rooted because the genre or the script that I'm trying to make demands that. So there isn't any rule like that. There are a few personal rules I have that I won't break, which is that I don't want to write any character in any of my films without a certain basic level of empathy as a writer. I want to make an effort to understand the character that I'm writing. That's very important for me. That sometimes restricts me in making, like there are certain stories that I think of, and I immediately start thinking of how do I understand this character? How do I make them grounded as real? And I tell myself, but this is your problem. This is why you can't open it up and go make like a proper commercial movie where it's in blacks and whites, where you don't have to deal with the nuances, where it's like one high after another. But I can't help it. But a rule that I have is I'll never write a character without a basic level of empathy as a writer. And if I feel that I don't have empathy for a character I'm writing, I try and develop that empathy. I try and think about it and understand that character. And another rule that I have for myself is that I don't want to have a male gaze coming through in my films. I want that gaze to be, even if it's a male gaze, I want it to be respectful. Like I had a lot of feedback where people think what I mean by that is that all the women in my film should always be covered head to toe. No, that's not what it means. There will be certain women who dress a certain way and they pull it off and they're comfortable doing it. My responsibility as a writer is to understand why that character expresses herself a certain way through how she dresses, for example. But what I mean by male gaze is not that all my women will always be covered head to toe. What I mean by a male gaze is I am not going to tell you where to look. I'm going to present you a woman, and I'm not going to tell you, I'm not going to focus on one part of her body or one aspect of her personality and train you where to look. That is what I mean by a male gaze. So that's a rule I have for myself. Because I do think that repeatedly over time, when we keep consuming the male gaze, it does affect how we look at women. It does for a lot of men, unfortunately, in our country, where in many parts of the country, it is still, people start either giggling and teasing you or start disciplining you when you make an emotional connect with the woman. It could be a romantic or a non-romantic relationship. But when you start becoming close to a woman, there has to be a label on it. There has to be a discussion around it, right? So for me, that repeated consumption of that male gaze feeds into looking for a lot of men who don't have meaningful relationships with women in their lives, especially non-romantic ones. They merely remain objects of sexual desire. And that the male gaze in the culture and the art that we consume feeds into that. So that's something I consciously avoid. Other than that, there are a few more like that, but nothing that's very grand or, I will never make a film like this, or I will always make only rooted, grounded films, nothing like that.
Right. So, sir, if you could recall one of the biggest no you have said in your career and why?
Biggest?
No. For something maybe.
It's been a few. I've said no to a few scripts. Even though I felt like they might just work, but I was like, no, it crosses a certain line where I don't want to be a part of a certain kind of cinema. There have been films where I've been given a narration and then on the set, I've been made to do things that I don't believe in. But there I'm like, I just grin and bear it and get it done with. I'm like, okay, you signed it. We're on the set now. There are, many people waiting here for you to get your job done. So you might as well get it done. So I've done that a few times, but at a narration level, if I'm seeing things that are not okay for me, I've said no to them a few times. As an actor, I mean. And I said no to not making The Girlfriend because a lot of people told me it wouldn't work, but I said no to not making it. And I said, I am going to go ahead and make it. So yeah, there have been things like that. Yeah, I did once, I remember, there was this film that I did where initially at a narration level, there was no scenes depicting physical intimacy. And then suddenly, after we finished shooting the film, they wanted a few days of patchwork. And he was suddenly writing these scenes and they were like, we need physical intimacy. And I was like, is it really needed? But I'm the type that just do what the director needs you to do, right? So I don't have any rules. So I was like, is it really needed? I asked them gently once. They said, no, we need it and all that. I wasn't convinced, but I said, okay, fine. And I said, but is the girl okay with it? They said, "Oh, don't worry about that, sir. She'll do it. We just need to go ahead from you." And then I later realized that she wasn't okay with it because she was a little scared and she hadn't reached a point in her career where she was okay doing physical intimacy. And I felt bad because I thought it was unfair. It wasn't communicated to her when she signed on for the film. So then and she said, "I'm not, these people are really putting a lot of pressure on me." So at that point, I'm not going to do it. I'm not comfortable with it. I don't want to do it, which is not the case. I'm okay. But I said I won't. So that was another incident. But other than that, yeah, I'm not.
So, how do you navigate the kind of pressure that, comes with the industry's expectation, especially with, having a national award on your names?
I think the only pressure I face as a national award winner is that, no, don't worry, I will make films that are mainstream, that will work. Don't worry, it's almost like a burden to carry. So, I'm so grateful I won it, and I think it is the highest acknowledgement you can get as a creator in this country. It is the highest award, and I'm very happy. I'm very grateful that I got it. But oftentimes, end of the day, I am a mainstream filmmaker. So sometimes I no, don't worry. So I think luckily the one that I won a national award for, and this film, which is not exactly commercial, have both done well. Both were profitable films. My first film as well as this film is a very profitable film now. So in that sense, I think people trust me that, okay, he is a mainstream filmmaker. But other than that, I think the biggest joy for me in having won that award was seeing the pride and joy in my wife and my parents' faces. That to me was the biggest joy. That meant more to me than actually winning the award itself. To see that look on their faces, I remember my dad couldn't control his pride, and my mom was teary-eyed, and my wife, she has this look on her face when somebody is appreciating me, or when I'm getting an award or something like that. When she has, it's a specific look. I can't even describe it. When she has that look on her face, to me, she is the most beautiful woman on this planet. So yeah, that is the greater joy. Yeah.
So, sir, if you could change one thing about the Indian cinema scene, what would it be and why?
Whoa, I'm not a guy who has grand plans like that, but so I've never even thought about it. All I care about is getting to tell my stories.
But if you could change?
If I could change, I would like to change one thing which Rajamouli sir has successfully managed to change, which is that I feel Indian cinema should be Indian cinema, and whatever language it is made in should be consumed around the country. And he's managed to not just barge through that door. He has taken a cannon and decimated that door and has opened it for everyone to go through. And in a weird sort of a way, I don't mean to be insensitive about it at all, because it's a pandemic that took many, many lives. But in a weird sort of a way, if there was one benefit for cinema from COVID, it was that suddenly the penetration of internet and suddenly the penetration of OTT platforms is now ensured that every film gets dubbed in every language when it's released on OTT, and everybody consumes films from every language. So that is very, very heartwarming for me to see. Because, like, for example, the American box office, they have 1/3 the population that we have, and their revenues are unthinkable for our films. So if we are able to unite our audiences and make it one marketplace, if we're able to make it one Indian cinema, our potential is staggering. Like, the kind of budgets we can afford, the kind of imagination we can afford, the kind of stories we can tell is staggering. And I think Rajamouli sir has already sort of set the tone for that and done that. So I think that's the one change, and I see it already happening.
Can you want to start as director kada meeru? You wanted to be a director. Can acting start చేశారు మొదట. But now acting busy అవుతున్నారు, డైరెక్టింగ్ ఏమో లెస్ చేస్తున్నారు.
లేదు
సార్.
కరెక్టే. అంటే ఈ బ్రేక్, అదే అల్లు అర్జున్ గారి డైలాగ్ ఉంది కదా, గ్యాప్ ఇవ్వాల వచ్చింది. సో అంటే నో సార్, యాక్చువల్లీ సెకండ్ సినిమా రిలీజ్ అయిపోయాక ఒక చిన్న 3-4 months బ్రేక్ తీసుకుందా. ఐ వాంటెడ్ టు రికవర్ ఫ్రమ్ ఇట్ అండ్ అండర్స్టాండ్ అండ్ రిఫ్లెక్ట్ ఆన్ ఇట్ అండ్ ఆల్ దట్. అదంతా అయిపోయాక ఒక November, December కల్లా కూర్చొని ఒక స్క్రిప్ట్ రాద్దాం అప్పుడే స్టార్ట్ చేశా. గర్ల్ ఫ్రెండ్ స్క్రిప్ట్ నేను 2020 January రాశాను. నేను రాసి ఒక 2 months కల్లా కోవిడ్ వచ్చింది. కోవిడ్ వచ్చాక ఫస్ట్ ఎవరికి అర్థం కాలేదు, ఏంటి లాక్డౌన్ అన్నారు, సరే 1 month అయింది, 2 months అయింది, ఇది ఇంకా అన్లాక్ అవుతుందా లేదా తెలీదు. సో అండ్ దెన్ బై 2021 Feb I signed with Geeta Arts and Rashmika. Rashmika came on board in June 2021. And then second wave happened, third wave happened. Her dates went all over the place because of the commitment she already had. So అది అనుకోకుండా గ్యాప్ వచ్చింది సార్. I didn't intend to take such a big gap. And the priority has always been directing and writing, not acting. So టైం దొరుకుతున్నప్పుడే యాక్టింగ్ చేస్తా.
అంటే చిన్న పాకెట్ మనీలో
అంతే. It's a fun hobby. I enjoy it. I enjoy being on a set and acting, and I enjoy observing other directors and learning from them. So it's a fun hobby, but the dream is
డైరెక్షన్.
So, but what really inspires you to write a story?
Like I said, it could be anything. Sometimes the most randomest of things. Sometimes I'm like, hey, that's an interesting character. I need to explore this character in a film. It's a character I want to talk about in a story. Sometimes it could be, that's an interesting incident. I want to tell the story. Sometimes it could be something that happened to me. Sometimes it could be something I read. So, for me, it has never been నాకు ఈ genre cinema తీయాలి, నాకు ఇప్పుడు నెక్స్ట్ 2-3 films లో ఈ మార్కెట్ రీచ్ అవ్వాలి. That has never been the motivation. It's always been you observe or read or experience something and like, hey, there's something here, I want to tell a story. Something that resonates with you, that speaks to you. So yeah, it's very abstract in that sense. I can't put a finger on it and say this is how.
ఇప్పుడు మీరు సంస్థ డెబ్యూ ఒకే సినిమా నుండి చేస్తారు.
అవును సార్.
ఫ్రమ్ దేర్ అవర్డ్స్ యు బికమ్ ఫ్రెండ్స్, లేదంటే మధ్యలో?
అంతే సార్, అంతే. అప్పటి నుంచి ఫ్రెండ్స్. బిన్ ఫ్రెండ్స్ ఫర్ 17 years now. సో మా ఫస్ట్ సినిమా, తను సైన్ చేసిన ఫస్ట్ సినిమా అది, మా ఇద్దరి డెబ్యూ తమిళ్లో. బట్ రిలీజ్ అయింది ఫస్ట్ ఏమై చేసావి, లక్కీలీ ఫర్ హర్. బికాస్ మా డెబ్యూ అయితే డిజాస్టర్ సినిమా. సో హర్ కెరియర్ మైట్ నాట్ have been the same, and thank God for that, because what a talent. So yeah, thankfully her debut was ఏమై చేసావే. ఆ సినిమా రిలీజ్ అయ్యి 2-3 months లో మా సినిమా రిలీజ్ అయింది. బట్ yeah, we've been very very close friends since then. So
కానీ మీ మొదటి సినిమా కూడా రివ్యూ చాలా మంది వేస్తున్నారు.
ఏది, ఏ సినిమా?
ఈ ఫస్ట్ సినిమా ఏదో వికీపీడియాలో తమిళ సినిమా
సార్ చెప్తున్నా కదా, డిజాస్టర్ సినిమా, మామూలుగా కాదు. సో
అంటే మీరు యాక్టింగ్ స్కూల్, ఈ డైరెక్షన్ వీటికి ఏం పోకుండానే
అంతే.
అంటే జనరల్లీ పీపుల్ విల్ గో.
సార్ నేను అసిస్టెంట్ డైరెక్టర్ అవుదామని వచ్చా సార్. నేను ఎందుకు యాక్టింగ్ స్కూల్కి వెళ్తా చెప్పండి, నా ప్లానే కాదు అది. ఎక్కడో ఒక ఆడిషన్ కి పిలిచారు, క్రాక్. నా ఫస్ట్ 4 films ఆడిషన్ చేసే క్రాక్ చేసేసారు. తమిళ్లో 3 సినిమాలు, తర్వాత ఇక్కడ వచ్చి అందాల రాక్షసి వరకు, అందాల రాక్షసి కూడా ఆడిషన్ చేసి నాకు రోల్ దొరికింది. ఐ వాజ్ ఆల్వేస్ గుడ్ అట్ క్రాకింగ్ ఆడిషన్స్. సో అందాల రాక్షసి తర్వాత ఐ గాట్ సమ్ సార్ట్ ఆఫ్ అన్ ఐడెంటిటీ. ఐ డెంట్ హ్యావ్ టు డూ ఆడిషన్స్ ఆఫ్టర్ దాట్. బట్ అప్పటి వరకు
అంటే వై డోంట్ యు ట్రై లీడ్ యాక్టర్? అందాల రాక్షసి సూపర్ హిట్ కదా
సార్. నేను చీలాసో మూవీ స్టార్ట్ అవ్వగానే తీసుకున్న కాన్షియస్ డెసిషన్, ఇంకా నాకు లీడ్ రోల్స్ వద్దు అని. ఇట్స్ టూ మచ్ ఆఫ్ అ కమిట్మెంట్ సార్. ఇట్ విల్ గెట్ ఇన్ ద వే ఆఫ్ మై రైటింగ్ అండ్ డైరెక్టింగ్. ఇట్ టేక్స్ అప్ టూ మచ్ ఆఫ్ యువర్ టైమ్. సో ఐ ఎంజాయ్ యాక్టింగ్. ఇట్స్ అ ఫన్ హాబీ. సో నా మైండ్ సెట్ ఇప్పుడు ఏంటంటే హీరో రోల్ వద్దు, అన్లెస్ ఇట్స్ లైక్ అ వెరీ వెరీ ఎక్స్పెరిమెంటల్ ఆర్ట్ ఫర్ ద సేక్ ఆఫ్ ఆర్ట్ కైండ్ ఆఫ్ సినిమా. ఐఎమ్ నాట్ ఇంట్రెస్టెడ్. 15 days రోల్, మాక్సిమం 20-25 days రోల్, అంతకు మించి వద్దు. లేదా నా ఫ్రెండ్స్ బ్రేక్ చేస్తున్నారు, వాళ్ళు అడుగుతున్నారంటే ఓకే, వాళ్ళ కోసం చేస్తా. So that is my attitude as far as my acting career is concerned. Or somebody's got me a role that I've never done. Like Shyam Sundar vachinappudu, I was like, I've never played a 92-year-old before. So it's like, hey, that'll be fun. I'll get to play a 92-year-old and I'll get to have prosthetics. So prosthetics gurinchi నేర్చుకోవచ్చు. So that is my attitude.
You made a debut also in Hindi. అది అలియా భట్
జిగరాతో.
అంటే how is it happened? అది ఎట్లా?
Basically casting, ఇట్స్ అ బ్యూటిఫుల్ స్టోరీ. నేను బాంబేలో ఉన్నప్పుడు ఇలాగే సార్, బాంబేలో నేను పని చేస్తుండగా ఎవరో ఒకరు రెస్టారెంట్ లో నన్ను ఆడిషన్ చేస్తారని అడిగారు. నాకు ఈ లుక్కే కావాలి, ఒక యాడ్ కి ఆడిషన్ చేస్తారని అడిగారు. సో ఓకే, వచ్చి చేస్తారన్నా. సో ఆ ఒక్క యాడ్ వల్ల నా దగ్గర పోర్ట్ఫోలియో కూడా ఉండేది కాదు. ఆ ఒక యాడ్ వల్ల చాలా ఆడిషన్ కాల్ వచ్చాయి. సో ఒక 8-9 యాడ్స్ చేశా. అందుకే ఆ 1.5 lakhs త్వరగా సేవ్ చేయగలిగా బాంబేలో, ఇంత ఖర్చు ఉన్నా. సో అప్పుడు దాంట్లో ఒక యాడ్ చూసి నాకు నా ఫస్ట్ తమిళ సినిమా ఆడిషన్ కి పిలిచాయి. దట్స్ హౌ ఐ బికేమ్ అన్ యాక్టర్ యాక్సిడెంటలీ. సో నేనేమో అడిగాను, సారీ మర్చిపోయా. సో బాంబేలో అపారెంట్లీ ఒకసారి నా ఏదో ఒక యాడ్ చూసి ఒక కాస్టింగ్ డైరెక్టర్ అపారెంట్లీ నాకు ఫోన్ చేసి మీ ఫొటోస్ ఉంటే పంపించండి అన్నారంట. ఒక ఈమెయిల్ పంపించానంట. అండ్ ఐ అపారెంట్లీ సెంట్ హర్ అ వెరీ ప్రొఫెషనల్, వెరీ పొలైట్, వెల్ వర్డెడ్ ఈమెయిల్ ఇట్ సీమ్స్. సో ఆవిడకి ఎందుకో ఆ ఈమెయిల్ మైండ్ లో ఉండిపోయిందంట. అరే ఎంత బాగా ప్రొఫెషనల్ గా రాశాడని. ఎప్పుడో ఐఎమ్ టాకింగ్ సమ్ 17-18 years back. సో she was then the casting director for Jigra. Look at life, right? So when Masam Bala told her that I want a South Indian for this character, she was like, "Arey, that South Indian boy who sent me a very polite email 18 years back." And Jeppy, she apparently found that email. She remembered my name because of how that email was worded. And she went to Wikipedia and realized, oh, this guy has now become a proper actor, director would IPA. Other than that, they got in touch with me and said, would you be willing to audition for Jigra? I said, sure, happy to. But దీనికన్నా ముందే Vasam Bala and I followed each other on Twitter. We've never interacted. We've never DM'd each other, nothing. నేను ఒకసారి మర్ద్ కో దర్ద్ నహీ హోతా సినిమా చూసి I had tweeted about the film because I thoroughly enjoyed that film. ఆ ట్వీట్ ని రీట్వీట్ చేసి ఆయన నన్ను ఫాలో చేశారు, నేను ఆయన్ని ఫాలో చేశాను. దాని తర్వాత అసలు ఇంటరాక్షన్ జరగలేదు. సో నేను ఒరిజినల్లీ నాకు ఫోన్ చేసినప్పుడు ఆయనే చెప్పుంటారేమో అని అనుకున్నా. కట్ చేస్తే ఆయన అసలు కనెక్షన్ కూడా చేయలేదంట. ఓహో వీళ్ళు తీసుకొచ్చిన ఈ మనిషి నేను ట్విట్టర్ లో ఫాలో అవుతున్న మనిషి కూడా ఈ డి మేక్ ద కనెక్షన్ ఇట్ సీమ్స్. సో అలా వచ్చింది నాకు జిగ్రా. సో ఆడిషన్ చేయమన్నారు. ఆఫ్టర్ మెనీ ఇయర్స్ ఐ గాట్ టు ఆడిషన్ అగైన్. ఇట్ వాస్ అ కిక్ అండ్ ఐ క్రాక్ దట్ ఆడిషన్ అండ్ దట్స్ హౌ ఐ గాట్ జిగ్రా. I mean, imagine, right? Some email I sent 18-19 years back. Life's like that.
Sir, you want to continue in Hindi? You know,
Sure, sir. If I get an interesting, like I said, sir, priority is direction and writing. So, అది డిస్టర్బ్ అవ్వకుండా హిందీ అయినా ఏ లాంగ్వేజ్ లో రోల్స్ వచ్చినా రోల్ ఇంట్రెస్టింగ్ గా ఉంటే, ప్రాజెక్ట్ ఇంట్రెస్టింగ్ గా ఉంటే హ్యాపీగా చేస్తాను.
లాస్ట్ క్వశ్చన్, లవ్ మ్యారేజ్ ఆర్ అరేంజ్ మ్యారేజ్?
పర్సనలీ ఫర్ మీ డెఫినెట్లీ, నేను లిటరలీ మా ఇంట్లో నేనైతే అరేంజ్ మ్యారేజ్ చేసుకునే ప్రసక్తే లేదని చెప్పేసాను. సో ఐ టోల్డ్ వెరీ క్లియర్లీ ఐ కాంట్ హ్యావ్ అన్ అరేంజ్ మ్యారేజ్. సో పర్సనలీ ఫర్ మీ, I said, if I meet a woman, I like her and I want to marry her and she wants to marry me, I'll marry. Otherwise, I won't in Jeppesa. So that is me. I may have changed my mind, but luckily I did meet a woman. I did fall in love and she fell in love with me too and we married.
So one parting note, ఇప్పుడు ఏదైనా స్టోరీ ఐడియాస్ ఉన్నాయా which you can talk about that you want to work on or that you want to make eventually?
I already have 2 drafts of the screenplay written and like I've already signed my next 2 films. So for one of them, 2 drafts of the screenplay is written. For the other one, the whole story is ready, but I need to sit down and write the screenplay. And there is also another story that I've developed, but again, yet to sit down and write the screenplay, which I have actually pitched to Rashmika and she loved the idea. That won't happen immediately because I have another couple of commitments. She has her commitments. So at some point, hopefully we'll be doing that film together as well. So I have at least 6-7 ideas ready. So one by one, hopefully I can get them done. So yeah.
Definitely. Thank you very much, sir. This was a great session and like really happy for the film as well as the conversation it has started and looking forward to many more such films from you.
Thank you
for taking
my pleasure. My pleasure, all of you.